Okay, so what we are going to be going over today is writing equivalent fractions. So while you're watching this video today, just as if I was in class, you need to make sure you are taking notes in your notebook, because when we are done, you are going to take a picture of your notes and then submit that to the class notes assignment in Canvas for today, which is October 6th. 10-6 equivalent fractions. And again, you're writing this down in your notebook for today. So I mentioned earlier this week when we did equivalent ratios that we would be writing equivalent fractions, which are pretty much the same. So we need to learn how to write equivalent fractions because we will be working on putting fractions in order from least to greatest, greatest to least, and comparing fractions. So to do that, we need to be able to write our fractions with common denominators. So when you're writing equivalent fractions, the first thing you are going to do is find the least common multiple for the denominators. Okay, and if you forgot how to find least common multiple, look at your notes from 10-5, which was yesterday. And as you're watching this, you can always pause the video to be able to keep up with taking notes. So after you find the least common multiple for the two denominators, you are going to rewrite both fractions using the LCM as your new denominator. Okay, so you'll first have to find the LCM for the two fractions, and then you will rewrite the fractions using the LCM as your denominator. Okay, so we're going to look at 3 examples. I am just going to use denominators that we used yesterday when we found LCM. So if I have the fraction 2/8 and I have the fraction 3/9, the first thing I'm going to need to do is find the least common multiple for 8 and for 9. Now, yesterday we did that. Okay, so on your notes from yesterday, you should have notes where we found the LCM for 8 and 9. We did it using list form, and we did it using factor trees and prime factorization. So you have to remember how to do that from yesterday. So we found out yesterday the least common multiple for 8 and 9 was 72. So that's what we're going to use. So then what you are going to do is that least common multiple becomes your new denominator. Then to write equivalent fractions, you're going to look to see this is just like equivalent ratios. What do you do to 8 to turn it into 72? Well, you multiply by 9. So to get your new numerator, you are going to multiply by 9. So it'd be 18 out of 72. Same thing for your second fraction. What do you do to 9 to turn it into 72? That would be a multiplication of 8. So whatever you do to the denominator, you also have to do to the numerator, which would give you 24. And now you have 2 equivalent fractions with the same denominator. Okay? And that's all you're doing with it for today. Then, another set of fractions. So if I have the fractions 2/9 and 3/12. Again, these are examples from yesterday. So yesterday, we found that the least common multiple for 9 and 12 was 36. You can find that using lists, or you can find that using graded or factor trees. Okay, so we had 9 and 12. We found it using a list is 36. We found it using factor trees as 36. So again, you can look back at yesterday's notes. So if I know my LCM is 36, I am going to rewrite both fractions with 36 as my denominator. So your LCM becomes your common denominator. So I look to see, what do I do to 9 to turn it into 36? That would be times 4. To keep them equal, whatever you do to the denominator, you have to do to the numerator. So this would be a multiplication of 4. So your new numerator would be 8. Same thing for the second one. What do you do to 12 to turn it into 36? That would be a multiplication of 3. So 3 times 3 would give me a new numerator of 9. So 2 9s and 3 12s with a common denominator would be 836 and 936. Okay. Then, last example. Again, I'm going to use numbers that we used yesterday. So if I had 2/3, 1/5, and 5/7, my denominators are 3, 5, and 7. Okay. So yesterday, this was the big long one. We found that the least common multiple for 3, 5, and 7 is 105. We only found it using factor trees because the lists were too long to do lists. So we're going to use 105 as our least common multiple. So all of these fractions we're going to rewrite with 105 as the denominator. So 3 times what gives us 105? That would be times 35. So whatever you do to the denominator, you also have to do to the numerator. So that would give us 70. 5 times what gives us 105? That would be times 21. So 1 times 21 would give us 21/105. 7 times what gives us 105? That would be times 15. So 5 times 15 gives us 75. So then you have 3 new fractions, all with 105 as the denominator. Okay, so again, you can pause this, go back and look at it, but you'll use least common multiple as your denominator, and then you'll rewrite both fractions using the least common multiple as your new denominator. Remember, whatever you do to the denominator, you have to do the same exact thing through the numerator. So now what you guys are going to do is you will take a picture of your notes, upload it to class notes. So today you need to do first class notes for 10-6. Then you're going to work on IXL G2. Then you would go into Khan Academy to math, to assignments. Okay, and you have 5 assignments there. If you finish class notes, IXL G2, and those 5 assignments in Khan Academy, you should only be working in your MyPath on iReady. We should not be playing games or working on anything else. Picture of your class notes in Canvas. IXL G2. Khan Academy, you have 5 math assignments. If you finish all of that, you should be working in your MyPath for math, iReady. We should not be working on other games. If you happen to get all of that finished, you need to make sure all of your IXL for this week are finished. And these assignments are for a grade.